There we are.
Okay. Great. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm feeling very good. Had a good day. Lots of fun stuff at the work.
Ooh, in one day, a lot of fun work. That's good.
Yeah. I
Would you like to share one while we're waiting for people to join?
Yeah, sure. I designed a workshop for a huge bunch of stakeholders. That's basically the kickoff, and the main challenge is to create ownership. So it's how to get a group of stakeholders to take ownership so that they really decide how things are going to get done, and having the product owner more in the background. So that's a pretty cool challenge.
Yeah, and all that you're doing remotely, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's even harder. Workshops remotely are difficult. I much prefer to do workshops on site, but yeah, today it's definitely challenging.
Yeah, but the worst is when they're hybrid.
Yeah, that's true. I think we talked about this when we talked last week. Hybrid meetings are just the worst. I feel like if you have to do a hybrid meeting and it's an important meeting, you need to have it like everyone sitting with their laptops or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So great. So I see more people are joining us. So, but it's just like 1 minute after the hour. So maybe we'll give them 1 more minute. While we're waiting for people, I would love to start with an icebreaker, my favorite way to start meetings in general, remote meetings especially. So let me just go to our board. So if anyone is not familiar with our Go Retro feature board, this is basically a public board that everyone can join to add feature requests to Go Retro. But I'm just going to use it for our icebreaker. So, haven't seen that one before. Erik, what is your favorite kitchen gadget?
I have one of those carbon pans, and that's my favorite gadget because I really like to cook with a lot of fire. So,
got it.
Yeah, so for example, when I make meat, I make sure the pan is hot enough that I'll have flames, so I would have grilled.
Oh. Do you have like a, how do you say it, like a fire extinguisher thing on top, or
no,
it's at your own risk?
That is a bit of an issue. There's part of the wood around the stove. I'm going to have to replace it soon. It's getting black.
Got it. I think for me it has to be something small. I think I would take my I have like a vegetable peeler that looks like a pencil sharpener.
Yeah.
And then you can take like carrots and stuff and sharpen them and get like really cool shapes from carrots and other stuff like that. It's also a really good peeler. So I think that would be cool. Cool. Okay, great. Let me see what time it is. Okay, I think we're ready to start.
Cool.
So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Noah from Go Retro, and I have Erik with me. We'll introduce Erik even more in just a bit. Just a quick introduction of what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to start with a really short intro about Go Retro, who we are and what's our goal. Then we're going to get to know Erik a bit more, and then we're going to start, if you can call it like start talking, we're going to start Scrum talking, and we'll hear from Erik a lot of really interesting stuff, I'm sure. And then we'll have some time for your questions. So feel free to add your questions already if something comes up. If not, you can wait till the end. And if there are no questions, we'll just continue with my questions here. So depending on how much you like my questions, feel free to add yours as well. So Go Retro. Basically, we're a team of developers that we feel like we share a really shared challenge with almost any other development team. We want to release more, right, faster. We plan too much sometimes we under deliver, and we definitely want to improve. We started with Go Retro. If you're following my webinars, I always say the Go Retro was just the beginning, and now is the time to tell you what's the next step. So Go Retro, basically, if you're not familiar with it, is a tool that helps you run really simple, fun, engaging retrospectives mostly remotely. It really helps also with following up on action items, creating them and following up. Super important, of course. And next week, we're going to have a very exciting launch. We're going to launch our Sprint Professional, which will basically help you to manage all your agile practices in one place. The main things we are going to release already with the launch would be the capacity calculator. We've basically talked to a lot of product managers, Scrum Masters, team leads, and we found that the planning is a really big pain for teams. One thing is understanding the capacity of each team when you're planning for your next sprint. So our calculator will help you really easily understand how much time your team really has to work on, reducing all your holidays, PTOs, carryover, unplanned bugs, understanding per developer and overall in the team, and also really get you like a really nice understanding of where your time goes, right? So we all want to think that if we have 10 days of work, we're developing for 10 days, but no one really does that, right? So it's good to know where does this time go as well. So this is one thing. And the other thing, so we have in the planning process, we have the understanding the capacity, understanding the estimations. So this for that we have our planning poker, which will allow you to add the team. And I haven't mentioned, but our previous, the capacity calculator will also integrate later on to Jira. So you'll be able to get all the data from Jira. And same thing with the planning poker, you'll be able to fetch your issues from Jira, from Azure DevOps with importing CSVs. And then you can start voting, discuss it, choose your custom decks. If you want to revote, all the planning poker stuff will be available here. So basically you'll be able to create your estimations really in a fun and engaging way, just like we want to do with GoRetro as well. The third part will be not for this month, but will be also to help with the task assignment itself. So that will kind of like close the whole loop for planning. So super exciting. If you want to hear more, let us know in the chat. Okay, so Erik, I wrote here like very short 3 sentences about you, but I feel like, we can talk about you for the whole 45 minutes that we have here. So just from reading a bit about you as well from our conversation, I would like to start with the last one I wrote here. So you started as an ecologist, so you studied ecology in university. I find that fascinating. I would love to hear a bit more about it, but just a bit maybe because, we want to make sure we also talk Scrum. You have 15 years of experience as a developer and all those titles: Scrum Master, Agile Coach, writer, speaker, and editor. Which one is your favorite title from all of these?
I like to be just a Scrum Master. I think it covers the rest too.
Great. Cool. Anything else you want to mention about yourself before I start digging with my questions?
Yeah, well, about the term Scrum Master, there's so much confusion about what it means. But I think if you look at the way it's defined in the Scrum Guide, it really covers so much more than people realize. And from me, it's actually a person that stands outside the formal hierarchy of an organization, and connects the people at the workplace where the value is created with the management, with the rest of the organization. And for me, it's therefore really important that as a Scrum Master you have access to the whole.
I feel like from the way you're describing it, I already hear the challenge. On one hand, you're like kind of like external to the team, but you need to be like representing the team and within the team, right? Do you feel like that makes sense? Do you feel like there's another challenge that is even more pressing than this one?
Yeah, well, I think it's because it comes down to value. The teams create the value, so that's the most important place to keep your finger on the pulse. But often what I realize, especially in normal organizations that are struggling with Agile, is that the problems, the solutions to the problems are outside the teams. So it's your challenge to connect them both. So as soon as I get to know my teams and we've analyzed where their challenges are, then I see it as my job to go off and tell people how they are getting in the way of the team, for example. Yeah, and that's really
Yeah.
challenging.
Yeah, I feel like it's super challenging because on one hand, it's super easy. It's always really, really easy for the team to kind of like blame everything on external factors.
Yeah.
But honestly, sometimes it is also related to external factors, right? When you feel, I'm sorry, I'm surprising you with questions that we didn't talk about before, but
No problem.
I like where this is going. So when you feel like, do you feel the need when the teams are like saying, this is because of this external factor and it's because of this external factor, to like kind of like bring them back to like, okay, maybe it makes sense, we need to talk about this, but where are we in this situation? You know, like where is our ownership here, and where can we take a stand here and let's change some stuff?
Yeah. I think that is basically the biggest responsibility of the Scrum Master, to help the team prioritize their challenges. The ultimate goal is to increase value, the productivity of the team, to effectiveness of the team, to create value. And as a Scrum Master, you have to be able to see the team as a system, but also understand how the team is part of a larger system, and help the team to understand what the low-hanging fruit are, the highest priority to fix. And often you'll start with stuff in the team, but there will come a certain moment where you realize that there's stuff outside the team getting in the way. And then, well, it's basic constraint theory. What's the point of trying to improve with the team when the real improvements are outside the team? It's not going to make a difference. But
yeah, you can do it up until a certain point, but yeah, eventually you have to handle those as well. Great. I just realized that because I was so caught up in the conversation, I didn't give you enough time to talk about yourself. So I want to go back a bit, and I want to ask a bit. So we talked about what you studied.
yeah.
I want to learn a bit more about this. And is it actually related to how you got to be a Scrum Master, or not at all?
Well,
And if you
no.
can share a bit about that.
Yeah,
No.
I studied biology because I was really idealistic. I grew up in foreign countries, international schools, and then you really get a feeling like the West is utopia, and everything is so fantastic. So when I came to the Netherlands to study, I really had a feeling like I'm gonna be like Fosse, from Gorillas in the Mist, the lady studying the gorillas and being a steward of the earth. So ridiculously idealistic, but towards the end of my studies, I realized that it's all about money. You can be a steward of the earth as long as people pay you to do it. So I kind of lost my idealism, and I basically decided, like, I'm just gonna have fun with my life. So I became a programmer, because as a programmer, you're actually being paid to play games all day. I mean, building stuff with code is like playing games. But then, of course, I ran into all the problems you have with software development, and me being who I am, I just kept banging my head trying to find solutions, and that's how I ran into Scrum.
So now you're kind of like, so you went from playing games, or you feel like now you're like designing the game, or designing like the playground or something like that, right?
Yeah, no, it's. I think I went full circle. I rediscovered my idealism, because I realized that Agile is a win-win situation. I think it's amazing how you have a system which actually it boils down to the fact that by making your developers happy, you will earn more money, and that's just a great idea.
Yeah.
And I think there's
Yeah.
nothing more beautiful than the moment when you get to the point with the teams that they realize that they're in control, that they're kind of like a bunch of artists, and they create a masterpiece every time, and that, yeah, that's just brilliant to see a team bloom in that way.
Oh, it's amazing how you make software development sound like poetry. I love that.
That's because
Yeah,
I
I
was a
see.
developer so long.
I see that you have supporters in the chat as well. That's really cool. Great. Okay, so talked a bit about Scrum already and the role of the Scrum Master. Going a bit more into retrospectives, what do you say is your favorite thing about running retrospectives?
The fun. For me, the retrospective is really the moment where together with your team, where you can really sit back and think about what you've been doing, and really take the time to discuss all the crazy ideas you've been having, and just poke around a bit, and be creative.
Yeah, it's amazing, because I feel like a lot of times when I speak to developers, for them, if you mention the retro, they don't see it as fun, or they will say everything you said, like, yeah, we need to talk about what we did and how we went, but they feel like it's the opposite of fun, right?
Huh.
And just yesterday, I talked to a Scrum Master, and she said, yeah, the most challenging part is the fun.
Yeah.
Is keeping it fun.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. And that is, I think that is, I'm really good at just fooling around, making jokes. And of course, energizers help too. But I think just having fun together and making sure that everybody understands it's a free for all, and you can just horse around. That's what makes it fun. But it's also really important for the safety, because it's almost like some primitive, unconscious way of dealing with the social aspect of our society. That as soon as you have fun with someone, you trust them. It goes hand in hand. You feel safe with someone. So that's the way, for me, the way it works, and that's why I really enjoy being a bit of the buffoon in the team. But of course, the risk is it doesn't have to get, it shouldn't get out of hand. So it's great to have fun and make jokes, but it should always tie back to the work.
Yeah.
So you don't make jokes about someone's hair just because of that. But it's fun to say, yeah. For example, they miss something in the review, that you make a joke. Yeah, of course you missed it because you've got so much hair in front of your eyes. You make a point about something that is relevant, but for the work. But at the same time, you do it in a fun way.
Yeah. Thank you for making this clarification, because I was going to say that, like, what I thought you meant was that you have to like frame it like, okay, we have fun, but we have fun for 10 minutes, and then we have time to be serious. So you're saying like, no, you can mix it up, but make sure it relates to the points you want to talk about, right?
Yeah. I think John Cleese, I saw a movie of his about creativity, and he said that the difference is that being solemn is what we confuse with being serious. If you're solemn, you're discussing someone, and you're not allowed to make fun of it. And what he suggests is you can talk about something seriously, but make jokes about it at the same time. And that I find that very interesting, the way he explains that, and I think it works.
Yeah. I definitely can relate to that. So do you have like a tip you want to share with people on how to make it fun, but like a creative one, not just the icebreaker, which of course the icebreakers do an amazing job, but something a bit more creative?
Yeah, well, I don't really make an effort to make it fun beyond.
Yeah, that's kind of like relates to what I wanted to say was like, imagine not everyone are so good at like fooling around like you are, right? They're not everyone has this character. So if it doesn't come naturally, what can you do?
Yeah, I think what really helps is using stuff around you. So especially now with remote, when I design a retrospective and mural, I make it fun by adding pictures, adding cartoons, and I'm not building a template. I'm just throwing in stuff which I kind of think of that somehow relates to the sprint, and some of it is really far-fetched, but that works too, because then the team comes in and they say like, what the hell is this? And then you try to explain it, and then they laugh. So it's
definitely images are always great. I think also like now we've just added GIFs to our boards, and I see just people are just using it everywhere. And my favorite use of it, I think, is having like a column in the board of asking people to describe something in a GIF. I think that always works really well.
I usually, when I have when we start with the Energizer and I ask a question, I'll ask them to find a picture on internet and just share it. And it just makes it playful, and that's a great step towards having fun.
Yeah, you reminded me that in my previous work, so the team was global. It was all remote, and we needed to, just like with retros, right? We need to kind of like increase the team's safety and familiarity. So what we've done once a week in our daily meetings, we picked a topic. And we basically asked, so the topic would be like, I don't know, like your favorite kitchen gadget, right? Like the icebreaker. And everyone had to put that thing as their background in Zoom.
Yeah.
So that was always a great way to start. Everyone is like waiting to see how people show up with, what did they show up with? And sometimes like you see a picture and you have no idea what they mean, right? And you basically need to, you're waiting for them to explain it. So it's also like a great way.
Yeah, cool.
Let's see what's okay. So if I already mentioned a bit planning in the beginning, so I would like to hear from you. What do you feel like are like the main challenges? And even more interestingly to me, is do you feel like you need to talk about planning in the retrospective as well?
You mean the sprint planning?
Yeah, the sprint planning, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. If it is a subject that comes up as something that needs to be fixed, or there is some kind of a problem in the planning, I'll definitely talk with the team about it. For me, I like to focus on the system, simply because I think if you have a problem with a piece of code, or you have something like that, then I feel that's an impediment and you should solve it right away, because it's getting in the way of your productivity. Small things you can also just fix. Yeah, maybe it's the difference between solving problems and creating experiments. For me, the focus of the retrospective is not to solve problems, it's to create experiments. If you try to solve a problem, you're just coming up with a solution. So it's kind of not necessarily obvious, but it's pressing. It's something that needs to be fixed. So just fix it. You can do that in your daily work. I expect my developers to do that. For me, the retrospective is the moment when you really are looking for the serendipity. It's the Elon Musk moment where you're going to think about something so outrageous that if it works, it's going to make such a massive impact. It's going to make you feel like a giant. And that's what the retrospective is for. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that definitely the sentence of like, don't look for solutions, but create experiments. This is definitely going to be one of my key takeaways from this session. I love this sentence. I wrote it down for myself. That's great. I'm going to try not to involve Elon Musk here, but
I think he's been, the fact that he came up with the electric cars and SpaceX, that is changing the system.
No,
that
definitely there's a lot of great stuff you can say about him. This week specifically, I think it's like a bit more sensitive.
Yeah, I know.
Definitely.
I used to be a huge fan of him, but I don't like him so much anymore. I'm not sure what he's doing.
I feel like it's a bit related to what you said in the beginning, that I think like he feels like everything is like a playground, right?
Yeah. Oh, is that me gone? Hello?
Oh.
Okay, I'm still here.
Yeah. Okay, the video is stuck, but I can already hear you back, so that's good. Do you want to maybe try like disconnect your camera and bring it back?
So I was the one that was gone. Yeah, that's weird because my.
Okay, I think the problem was with my internet.
Am I moving?
Just for a second, I'm going to switch. Ken, okay. Okay, so the problem is just with me, Erik.
Yeah, I'm on Linux, so I have quite a bit of faith on my system.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to post my next question and you'll hopefully answer it.
Yeah,
and
sure.
then we'll see. I'll hope that it's fixed on my end. So let me just see what I wanted to ask you about. Okay, so if you can hear me well, then can you talk a bit about how you're generating action items from your team, generating the action items from your team, basically getting the ideas and getting them to get ownership?
Yeah, for me, the whole point of the retrospective is to create action points. I will make that clear to my teams. I will make clear that's the whole idea. If we don't have an action point, then we don't have anything to do an experiment with. And I think that that is a very important step in creating that ownership. And I'll sort of help them to really figure out how to create an action point. It's easy to start with what's going wrong. People can always think about things that go wrong. But the next step is, okay, so how are we going to fix it, and how are we going to test whether it's having an effect? It's almost a little bit like writing a user story. You want acceptance criteria. And of course, I'll try to not to make it that formal. Most of the time, the acceptance criteria, they're implicit. I'm not interested in formalizing it. I'm just interested in creating the awareness that is the whole point. Can you hear me? Oh,
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, it's going back and forth a bit, but I can hear you. Great. So did you see that someone asked in the chat? I don't know if you can see the chat. How do you deal with teams that don't think they don't have action points, right? That don't think they have action points.
Yeah. Well, and that is first of all, that is your job as a Scrum Master to help them reach the point where they have action points. You want to create an experiment, and you include the team in that. If that's unclear, for example, with new teams, then we talk about empiricism. We talk about the whole idea that if you want to improve something, you're going to try something and you want to measure if it works. So then it usually becomes kind of obvious. Yeah, and if that doesn't help, then I can sometimes try to give examples of possible action points that you could use. That really helps, bit of an inspiration. And in my experience, eventually the team gets the idea, and then it just goes. Yeah, and I think beyond that, if you're really having trouble getting that understanding through, then maybe there's more going on than you realize, that there's something in the organization which is having an impact on how the teams experience their self-organization, the freedom to actually fix their own system. So then my advice would be to look around in the rest of the organization, see what kind of problems you might find there. Yeah, I see another question about the size of the experiment. Well, it's a little bit like refinement. You want to have an action point. An action point has to be actionable. So by focusing on the action points, you automatically have to create an experiment that has the right size. And that doesn't mean that you can't have a very big experiment. You can have an action point that carries on for a number of sprints, but you just have to be aware of the way the action point has to be measured, the way it's going to impact the system. So with my team, sometimes we can have 2 or 3 action points going on at the same time, 2 or 3 different experiments, simply because of the level they're working at. I can give an example. I had a team that was having trouble with their capacity. They had a very unreliable velocity. So at a certain moment, we had 3 different experiments going on. We had an experiment where in the sprint planning, we tried to break down the user stories we had to make them as small as possible. But at the same time, we had an experiment where in the refinement, we focused on improving our user stories. So the sprint planning was happening every sprint. so we can evaluate every sprint. But the backlog refinement that happened it had a much more long-term effect, so that we checked a few months after starting with the experiment.
Thank you, Erik.
That sounded quite complicated, but I hope everybody got the idea.
Yeah, no, I just a second. Okay, sorry, I switched earphones. Now I can hear you really well. Again. Okay, I see that they also got it. I think this is a really, really great point. And by the way, one idea that I actually came up with while I was talking to Erik exactly about this topic is to actually create a column after you already create the discussion, start talking about what, like what should you find action items for, what you want to solve or create an experiment for, if I'm using Erik's words, is to add at that point, add a column in the board and ask people, like give the team a few minutes to come up with ideas. And then we can actually even vote on them and try to come up with, understand together what experiment they actually want to try. And that's really like getting them creative. It's a difficult one, but I think it's a really interesting experiment about creating experiments.
I usually spend a minimal amount of time talking about the problems we have. I'll often just have, like 5 minutes share post-its and then we'll dot vote. And the rest of the retrospective, I'll just work with the team to see how we're going to set up the experiment. And
yeah, that's good. Let me see. So we covered all the questions we had so far, right? I think we did. Cool. So let me go back to my questions. So what else did I want to talk about? Okay, so on a really interesting article that I read from you, you were talking about the difficulty of defining the metrics for Scrum Masters. So I think that really just like we're measuring the team, right? It's really important to measure, even if it's just for ourselves as Scrum Masters, how are we doing, right? Can you share a bit about how you're measuring yourself, or what kind of metrics are you using for that?
To be really honest, I don't. I mean, I studied ecology. I learned statistics. And when I started out as a Scrum Master, I spent a lot of time trying to measure stuff and using a hell of a lot of statistics to try to make sense of the data. And I kind of got to a point where I was figuring stuff out, but the amount of effort I had to put into it was ridiculous. And eventually what I started realizing is that we practice empiricism in Agile, but the whole idea of doing Agile is that we're operating in a very complex world, and it is really hard to measure stuff. That's the whole way, the reason why we do Agile. So I realized that measuring things is only a tool, and it's a relatively unreliable tool, actually. I prefer to rely on the intuition of my teams. If I want to find out if I'm doing a good job, I'll just ask them, and we'll have a conversation. Because I mean, if you think about it, empiricism, it all sounds great, but where is empiricism practiced? It's practiced in science, where you have experts who spend most of their time trying to design experiments where they freeze all possible parameters so that it can measure one or two. Or you have it in industry with the Industrial Revolution, where you have a system which is perfect to measure parameters because you have so much control on it that you can really manipulate the parameters, and that just doesn't apply to a complex system. It doesn't apply to software teams. So, I mean, if my management asks me how the team is doing, I'll never talk with them, show them reports, velocity, and all that stuff. I'll invite them to one of our meetings so we can have a conversation. So I think that's it's almost like it's a misunderstanding. Everybody understands that we do Agile because the world is too complex, but I think people think that it only applies to the work we're doing. But Agile goes a lot further. It applies to the way we communicate, to the way we evaluate each other. And in Agile, we really have to understand that there's other ways of doing things. Trust. That's why trust is so important, because I want my manager to trust me. I'm doing my best, and I'm professional enough to evaluate myself and keep learning. And I have the same trust in my teams. I expect them to do their best, and I expect them to hold each other to high standards.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the questions I actually had that I just skipped because it was basically how do you generate like this safe space, right? Where you can actually talk about stuff. So we talked about it a lot in the beginning about creating fun and all that. So I think that's really, really great.
Yeah, it's a perfect example.
To ask.
Sorry?
Yes. No, go ahead.
One of my best experiences was at a small startup. We had 4 teams, and it was really great. We had it really felt like the whole organization was a team. But of course, money was an issue. So failing a sprint, not delivering whatever, it was a serious thing. And I got this reputation that I was at my happiest when we screwed up a sprint. So I would actually just jump around in the hole and say, "Yeah, we screwed up." And eventually my boss, he came up to me and because he thought it was a bit irritating, and then I explained to him that what was happening was 2 things. I was teaching the team to fail. To accept the fact that sometimes you screw up, but at the same time, I told them that is the moment when you really learn something. Me as a Scrum Master, I can tell my team how to do stuff, but then it's my thing, it's my responsibility. I kind of become a manager. But having the team fail and then realize it for themselves, that is a lesson they'll never forget.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think it really ties to what I was talking to in our previous talk with David, where he said that the team needs to know that they have space to fail.
Yeah.
Right. If they don't know that they have the space to actually fail, they're too scared to run these experiments you're mentioning, to try out different things, to talk about something that maybe they did wrong or, they need to improve. So I think that's really great. I'm checking if there are any questions. We haven't answered that. Yeah. Yes, what's your opinion on using Agile for short-term projects rather than products?
Yeah, I've the startup I was just talking about. We worked with short-term projects. The shortest project we did was 3 months, and we worked Scrum, and it was fine. Basically, every project had its own product. And we worked in projects because basically the client would ask us to build something, and we would build it in usually between 3 and 9 months, and then we would switch to another project. But eventually we would come back to the original project.
Great, thank you for that. We only have like a few more minutes, so if anyone else has any other questions, please add them now. I think what I wanted to ask that I haven't asked yet is about so there are 2 challenges that are like opposite. On one side, I hear a lot of people talking about how their team doesn't talk during the meetings. And on the other hand, they talk too much or there's someone that talks too much. So how do you handle any of these things? And the part I really would love to hear about is if you ever had like this crazy moment of like just like a really long silence in a meeting, and what do you do with that?
I love long silences. It's just I'm really aware of it. It's something I learned earlier on as a Scrum Master to sort of be zen about it, and I realized that those awkward silences, the team is suffering, and they're really it's like a game of chicken. And the fun thing is whoever budges first, they get the ownership of the conversation. So for me, just letting those awkward silences until the team speaks up, that's just brilliant. I really enjoy that.
But like someone said here, it's a skill.
Yeah, yeah.
So you need to feel confident enough that the silence is okay, right? And the team will eventually, someone will have to.
Yeah.
Just like you said, a game of chicken, right? I love
Yeah,
that.
and for the situation where people talk too much, I always use liberating structures, and that means I work with time boxes, and usually I don't let people have discussions, conversations. We just work with post-its. So I'll use a 1-2-for-all to talk about the problems. I'll use a 1-2-for-all to discuss the solutions, and I'll let the conversation take off when we're getting to the real point, when we have all the information and when we've narrowed it out enough that it then it's important to have the conversation. But by that time, because you've given everybody the chance to contribute, everybody is involved. You've got the engagement, so then it's more balanced usually.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I think we are out of time. So just a second, just one last thing I want to share. If I just find the right screen, here it is.
Yeah, I just
okay,
want
so going back to the presentation, what I wanted to just talk about, in 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks, November 23rd, we are going to have our next session. I'm going to have as a guest Tali Guetta, our VP of Product. Very excited about this, and we're going to talk about becoming a Sprint Pro, basically using all of our Sprint Professional tools that we're going to release very soon. So everyone's definitely welcome to join us. I'm going to stop the screen so I can see this. Sorry, I didn't get the last comment. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, someone said LS, liberating structures. Got it. Great. Thank you. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And yeah, we're going to upload this this session to YouTube. Hopefully the sound is good because I've had some trouble with the sound here, and I'm going to send it to everyone here. So yeah, thank you very much, Erik.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. Any last thing you want to say, Erik?
Yeah, it was fun. It was way too short.
Well, we might have to invite you again.
Yeah, I'm always happy to join you guys. And thanks to everyone for joining.
Yeah. Have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.